AEW Dynamite Grand Slam is over, but now there is controversy because of the finish of Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega. And today I will give the real reason why Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega ended in a time limit draw. Welcome to Wrestling News Now, everybody. Let's go ahead and get into today's story. So on the September 22nd, 2021 episode of AEW Dynamite, it was a very special episode called AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. It took place in New York City at Arthur Ashe Stadium, and AEW touted that there was over 20,000 people in this stadium. AEW decided to start the show, very surprisingly, with Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson, of course formerly known as Daniel Bryan in WWE, and this was his first match in AEW since leaving WWE. At the beginning of the match, it was noted by Jim Ross that this match would have a 30-minute time limit. Now, most fans didn't expect this match to go to a time limit draw, so when it was announced that it was going to be a 30-minute time limit, most fans ignored it. They didn't pay any attention to it. But as the match started and it started to get going, fans noticed that the match was going very long. And by the 25-minute mark, fans started to think, is this match going to go 30 minutes? Is it going to be a time limit draw? Now, of course, the match was not for the AEW title, so most fans thought, well, Bryan Danielson needs a big win. Bryan Danielson had recently debuted for AEW, and he needs to have a big win under his belt if he is going to face Kenny Omega for the AEW Championship. So most fans expected Bryan Danielson to win. So towards the end of the match, the commentator said that there was 45 seconds left. But AEW announcer Justin Roberts, who should be announcing every minute or so how much time is left, when he announced how much time is left, we couldn't really hear it. It was not well mic'd. The audio wasn't good, so we couldn't understand what he was saying. So Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega, they were brawling back and forth, and then the bell just started to ring, and the fans in Arthur Ashe Stadium started to boo, and this ended up being somewhat of a embarrassing moment for AEW just because of the fact that this was one of AEW's biggest shows they've ever put on, especially for an AEW Dynamite. It may have been the biggest AEW Dynamite episode of all time, except for the debut episode. And what we got was, in the opening match, was a 30-minute time limit draw. And fans in the stadium were not happy about this, and many fans on the internet who reacted online were not happy about this either. Now, many fans want to know, what is the reason behind this shocking time limit draw that was very unexpected? Most fans did not expect this to happen because we rarely see draws in wrestling, especially in AEW. There's been a couple, there have been a few time limit draws, but nobody expected it to happen on such a big show where AEW needed to put their best foot forward. They needed to put on the best show possible. Now, the real reason why this match, Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega, went to a time limit draw is because AEW did not want to give away Bryan Danielson beating Kenny Omega. They want to save it for when Kenny Omega faces Bryan Danielson for the AEW title, which is rumored to take place in November at the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view, which is only 5 or 6 weeks away. So this is the main reason why this happened, but there are many other reasons why this took place, why they had this time limit draw. AEW officials, including Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, knew that doing a controversial time limit draw would upset fans, obviously. That is one of the reasons why he did this. This is another reason why he did it, because he knew that it would cause a massive outrage from fans in the stadium, from fans online, and also it would create a buzz. Even though it was a very negative buzz, it was a very negative fan reaction that took place during this match between Bryan and Omega. Tony Khan thinks that any kind of big reaction, whether it be negative or positive, is a good thing. and that is another reason why this happened. AEW officials also hope that this reaction from fans being upset about not getting a finish, getting a time limit draw, will lead to fans wanting to see Omega and Bryan wrestle each other one-on-one for the title at the upcoming AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. But with all that being said, fans did enjoy the match. It was one of the liveliest crowds we have seen in a wrestling show in a very long time. The match was very good. Just the big problem with it was it had a flat finish with having a time limit draw. And fans have to remember, this is just the beginning. We're going to see Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega several more times in the coming year. We're going to see huge matches coming up for AEW, like possibly seeing Bryan Danielson versus CM Punk, Bryan Danielson versus another recent AEW signee, Adam Cole. All of these matches are huge. We're going to see them down the line, and fans need to keep calm when it comes to some of these finishes, because they're going to have to do stuff like time limit draws, because AEW, they don't really do countouts. They don't do disqualifications, because they see that as something that WWE does, and they don't want to copy things that WWE does. They want to do their own thing. So one of the things that they're trying to create is having time limit draws be their thing, something that you will only see in AEW, even though it isn't great to see draws all the time, and we're only going to see them probably a couple times a year at the most. And this was one of those situations where you have two guys, Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega, two of the biggest stars in AEW, who just couldn't lose in the eyes of Tony Khan, because they're just such big stars, and having them lose, especially Bryan Danielson, who should not be losing anytime soon, you just can't have that happen. And that's why this time limit draw was needed for this match. But the finish still got booed by fans at Arthur Ashe Stadium, which probably means AEW should not do these draws very often. So that's it for today, everybody. What are your thoughts on Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega ending in a time limit draw? Leave a comment and give me your opinion. And thanks for watching Wrestling News Now. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell notification so you don't miss our next video.